Imagine a simple game. We flip a coin. If it lands on heads, you win $49. If it lands on tails, you lose $51. On a single toss, it feels like a fair shot. But if you play 1,000 times, the math ensures you will lose everything. No rational person accepts those terms when they're stated clearly. Yet this 2% imbalance is the structural foundation of every slot machine, every poker table, and digital betting app in existence. This diagram illustrates expected value. In legal gambling, the return-to-player rate is usually 70 to 90%. Statistically, the moment you place a $1 bet, it's worth about 80 cents. The remaining 20 cents are immediately absorbed by the house for profit. Every wager is a calculated transfer of wealth. The house doesn't need to be lucky. It simply needs you to keep playing long enough for the math to settle. This raises an obvious question. If the math is so strictly against the player, why do we see people walking away with massive, life-changing wins? In the short term, the law of large numbers allows for wild fluctuations. Early on, you might hit a lucky streak, but across thousands of bets, these spikes flatten out. Your results mathematically regress to the house's negative expected value, pulling your balance to zero. Mathematical ruin is a certainty over time. This means that when we choose to keep playing, we aren't making a calculation error. We are experiencing a biological bypass of our logic. The human brain evolved to find patterns in order to survive. Recognizing a specific rustle in the grass or a change in the wind allowed our ancestors to predict threats. We are naturally uncomfortable with true randomness. This instinct leads to the gambler's fallacy. If a roulette wheel lands on red 5 times in a row, most players feel a physical urge to bet on black, believing it is due to appear. This probability tree shows why that feeling is a mistake. Inanimate objects have no memory. The wheel does not know its own history. After 5 reds, the statistical probability of the next spin remains exactly 50-50. Our drive to find a predictable sequence makes us ignore the reality of independent events. We see logic where there is only noise. If you throw a dart and miss the center by a millimeter, the result is 0. In any physical reality, a near miss is just another way of describing a total failure. However, digital gambling environments are designed to emphasize these microscopic failures. Slot machines are programmed to stop the reels just one icon away from a jackpot, creating the illusion that you were close to winning. When you experience a near miss, the brain releases a surge of dopamine. Neurologically, this response is almost identical to the feeling of an actual victory. By simulating these close calls, the game keeps the player in a dopamine loop. The brain begins to reward the act of losing, provided the loss looks like it almost didn't happen. This feedback loop is most dangerous when a player wins early. A purely luck-based victory often changes how an amateur views their own skill. This is outcome bias. Surviving a game of Russian roulette doesn't mean you have a superior strategy for not getting shot. It just means you survived a high-variance event. New players often mistake a lucky streak for a repeatable system. They believe they have found a way to navigate a game that is actually governed by random chance. Early success creates a sense of confidence that the underlying math will eventually dismantle. Eventually, the variance turns. The short-term luck runs out, and the player watches their balance drop. This is loss aversion. The pain of losing is twice as intense as the joy of winning. As balances fall, the brain anchors to the highest number reached. Any amount below that peak is perceived as an unacceptable debt that must be settled. The motivation shifts. The goal is no longer to enjoy the game or gain wealth, but to erase the emotional distress caused by the loss. This leads directly into the sunk cost fallacy. After heavy investments of time and money, stopping feels like throwing it all away. It becomes harder to abandon the effort than to keep going. This creates a justify their previous losses by making even larger, more irrational bets, hoping to make the investment worthwhile. Breaking this cycle doesn't require a new betting system. It requires the emotional clarity to accept the loss as gone and the strength to walk away